Please come in. Please. The next talk, the next talk will be about circular economy statement in fashion and luxury with Céline DASSONVILLE of Ethiwork and the French Federation of Circular Fashion and Karine SZEGEDI, partner at Deloitte, Switzerland. Good afternoon, everyone. Very pleased to welcome you again in the Reluxury, at the Reluxury Talks. I'm very pleased to start again this afternoon to talk about circular economy statement in the fashion and luxury industry. I'm very pleased to welcome on stage Céline DASSONVILLE, CEO of Ethiwork and co-founder of the French Federation of Circular Fashion. Please.
Thank you.
As well of Karine SZEGEDI, partner at Deloitte, Switzerland. They will address where we are in the luxury and fashion industry in regards to circular economy, and Karine will introduce the report that Deloitte made recently about watchmaking industry. Please. Welcome on stage, Karine.
Thank you. Thank you. So, good afternoon to everyone. Thank you very much for coming and taking the time to enrich your knowledge about what Reluxury is about. Please be indulgent. We didn't have so many time to prepare our speeches. And please, if you've got questions, keep them in mind because we would like to have this session interactive. I'm talking with multiple heads. So I'm myself, but I'm many self. So I'm talking as a partner of Reluxury, working hands in hands with Stephanie on the editorial line. I'm talking as the CEO of Ethiwork, which is an impact studio that I created that is dedicated to foster sustainability subject within the luxury sectors. And I'm talking as well as a passionate citizen about luxury and how to make luxury and sustainability compatible in all sense. And I'm talking as well as the co-founder of Fédération de la Mode Circulaire, which is a coalition that has got more than 150 members that aims at promoting circularity within the fashion industry. Because when we talk about luxury, we talk about art luxury, but we talk as well as fashion luxury. So I'm starting with a TEDx talk pitch. I'm having way too much slide. I think I've got 40 slides. I've got 18 minutes. I'm going to try to be the clearest as I can. If you want the slide, they can be shared with you. So sometime I might be quick and I will just give the key idea of what I want to convey to you. And if I'm making any mistake or if you want to challenge me, you are really welcome to do so. My role will be to give an overview of luxury in general, how it's embracing circularity and sustainability. So I will talk from all different sectors, being jewelry, watchmaking, fashions, leather goods, or maybe luxury cars, even if I don't have any example about that. And what we will do with Karine is that we will deep dive into the watchmaking sectors, and we will unveil confidential informations about a study that has been carrying Deloitte on the appetencies, I don't know if you say that, and the desirability of customers for second-hand product and sustainability within the watchmaking crafts. So you're going to have not the informations that are in the reports, but you're going to have more than that. And we're going to unveil some of the key findings that are of some interest to you, I hope. I'm French. My English is not my first language, so sometimes I eat my word, but I will make sure that I'm trying to be the clearest as I can. So this is us. So I'm taking the zappets, and I'm hoping that it's going to work for the presentations to be on screen. Okay. So Reluxury is about repairing, reinventing, rethinking what luxury is about. So I'm going to explore that from a macro perspective. Who I am, well, this is me. You seeing me in real, you seeing me in photography. And I'm the CEO of Ethiwork. And Ethiwork do a lot of research to democratize the knowledge around sustainability for the luxury and fashion sectors. And we've got a website where we give away all the reports that are done by big 5 companies such as Deloitte, and we analyze them, and you can have access to it. And we conduct as well survey of innovations, so they're going to be a surprise by the end of the talk. We had a crush, Earth crush, for Nopla, that is going to talk about an innovation at the end of the speeches. So I was addressing the subject this morning. When we talk about luxury, we can think that there is no sustainability issue, because luxury is about goods that are crafted with quality and the intentions to last from generation to generations. But at the same time, the subject is not simple. So that doesn't mean that the luxury sector is bad in itself. That doesn't mean that the luxury sector is not an example, but that means that the subject is sometimes a bit more trickier, and it's not black and white, as always when we talk about circularity or sustainability. So we talk about objects that stand for iconic. Okay, I need the lights. Okay, it's better. But I'm not seeing so well my screen, but it's okay. I've got my contact lens. So we talk about products that embody iconic beauty. And this iconic beauty has got a very strong power. It stands for some things that look good and stand for art de vivre. And at the same time, if we follow the thread and we look at the origin of the materials, they are not bad by themselves, but they raise questions. A mine is a mine. A diamond is coming from a mine most of the time. And mines raise questions in terms of biodiversity preservation and in terms of CO2 emissions. So the subject of origins, let's take, for example, a beautiful leather coat. We're talking about leather. And leather, it's about using animal to craft stuff. It's not bad in itself, but it's raising questions about the way we raise animals and what the animals stand for in terms of CO2 pollution or emissions. It's as well a paradoxical situation, because we are an industry that had for ages the culture of secrecy. The way you craft good was just done behind closed door. Sometimes you could see the artisan and the mancraft, but most of the stuff about the sourcing, about who you used to craft, was kept secret, being closed door. And at the same time, we are in a time where everyone is expecting to have transparency. So this is a big challenge for, I would say, the luxury sectors. And I know that there are things that are done, such as the Luxury Transparency Index, that is supposed to come for the luxury sectors. And it's something that it's quite tough to manage for the luxury sectors. Same thing. When we talk about sustainability, when we talk about recyclability, we're talking about crafting sometimes product out of waste. But at the same time, luxury goods have always been standing for quality and excellence. So how can you bring together the demand for quality and excellence in the craft and the fact that maybe you're going to source goods from wastes? So there are questions about, is it going to last as long as other stuff? Other paradoxical things that we can explore is that when we talk about luxury good, we can sometimes wonder when we talk about sobriety, where is the place of luxury goods? Can luxury be sober? It's a question as well. Is it the role of luxury to embrace sobriety or not? So that's many questions as well. Today we are in a society where, especially in France, sobriety was the word that every politics, every company was having in the mouth. So how you just manage that when you are working for a luxury brand, it's quite important. Then there is as well a tension when we talk about luxury between the manual know-how that has been a tradition within the luxury sector of craft, but as well the exponential growth of luxury has led the luxury sectors to be more industrialized, to sometimes delocalize some of the crafts. So how do we manage this desire to craft locally with artisanal by still scaling the business? It's challenges that we have to reconcile with the circular economy. And then at the same time, when we talk about luxury, the setting of luxury is about event. It's about being iconic. It's about using stars. It's about having a certain lifestyle that is sometimes around things that are ephemeral, but at the same time, it must be about longevity and durability. So how those notions can live together, it's a tricky questions. And we've got as well the topic that is more in terms of social impact is how we can manage the intangible cultural heritage preservation with the commitments. So all that to say that it's not a simple question to talk about circularity within the luxury or sustainability within the luxury, but there are things that luxury sectors can be very proud about. First things, we shouldn't confuse fashion sectors and fast fashion with luxury. So if we talk about absolute value of impact, they've got nothing compared to each other. So the absolute value of environmental impact of luxury sectors is, I can't remember, it's about 100 times tinier than the one of the fashion, even more than that. I will give you the exact number because I can't recall it. One thing as well that luxury sector has been leading the way for ages is that as luxury is using precious materials, eco-conception most of the time has been the norms because you're not going to waste diamonds, you're not going to waste gold, you're not going to waste precious materials. So they were the first to have a culture of eco-conception by design in the way they were using the resources. And then at the same time, one thing that luxury sector has as a key differentiation of other sectors, it's that it's been working for ages through the storytelling and through the iconic design, what we call the emotional and physical durability. So the way you get attached to a product has been emotionally very strong within the luxury sector, which is not the case for other sectors. Just few sentences that stand for that. That a diamond is forever from De Beers. You never actually own a Patek Philippe. You merely look after it for the next generation. So transmission has been always within the DNA of luxury sectors. And then the sentences for Jean-Louis Dumas, who was head of Hermès, it's that, I don't know if you speak French, because I don't know if I can translate properly, but le luxe, c'est créer un rêve qui perdure. So in the unconscious footprints that luxury give and share, It's something that it's there to stay. And we can see that if we look at, for example, the way prince and royalties or people that have got power are using iconic luxury goods that are the same across time. At the same time, let's not be shy. There are still questions that the luxury sectors need to tackle, and they are not always easy to tackle. For example, how can an exclusive sector can be inclusive? We're talking about inclusive economy. We're talking about, in the Sustainable Development Goals, acting for more equality in the world. How an exclusive sectors can do that? It is not impossible, but there is no easy answer to that. There is this question, how luxury can be sobriety compatible? Should it be or not? That's a question that brands might have different answer to. There is the question as well on how you can make waste maybe become the new luxury resources, how you make that acceptable, how sometimes you may be selling upcycled material or recycled materials that have got an extra cost because producing recycled materials sometimes need investment. And there is as well this question on how precious and scarce resources can be sustainable. Sometimes we talk about resources that are limited resources. Gold, you don't have that many gold in the world, so at some point, if we continue our consumptions as we consume today, we might come to an end at some point of the day. But the good news is, for example, that gold is one of the best materials for recyclability. How we can reconcile this paradox through circularity? This morning, I won't go in details on that. We explain what recycle economy was about. It's not just about using waste. It's not just about vintage products. It's a much broader concept that completely shifts the way you produce, you use, you sell, and you manage the end of life of your product. And this is a true revolution, and luxury sectors is really good at embracing that. And when we talk about luxury, we shouldn't forget that this is not just fashion. This is not just any other sectors. We're talking about things that are intertwined with our human being on what make us being a mankind. It's about self-expressions, it's about heritage, it's about socialization, it's about culture, it's about the emotional sustainability. In that sense, luxury sectors is quite different from other. And then luxury drives the story. It shapes the dream that we have. You might be poor, you might still dream about some luxury items. It's not because you are not a purchaser that it doesn't shape what is considered as being desirable and what is considered sometimes as a symbol of success or self-esteem. So this is just few examples of use of fashion luxury that have been moving across time. For example, Marilyn Monroe, diamonds are a girl's best friends. That has been shaping the mindset of generation, and this is to a certain extent how the engagement ring, that was not a diamond before, became a diamond in our society currently. I was talking about the role of royalties, about jewels that have been crossing time, whether it's the hope, whether it's the jewels of the royalty. They are icons that go through generation and generations. But at the same time, luxury more and more is having a certain level of activism, because it's got a stand as well of what the society is about in terms of gender equity, in terms of men of women equality, in terms of what do you consider the tax should be used for, in terms of many things. So, for example, we talk about vintage about Reluxury. So Kim Kardashian, for the Met Gala, she was wearing Marilyn Monroe original dress. Is it good? Is it bad? It's traveling across time. More and more movie stars are using vintage clothes, and they are just saying it very proudly. I didn't get the new dress. I took my old dress that I made upcycle. So we think that there is a whole shift in the consumption of luxury as well, and what luxury stands for. Design, heritage, history, logo, image, show. It's all about footprints. And those footprints are leaving a strength on people, society, and history. So there is the subject of environmental footprint, but also social footprints, but as well cultural footprints and patrimonial footprints, as well as the intangible heritage. But we should not forget that we have a duty to be responsible for the footprint that we've got on climate, on biodiversity, on ocean pollutions, on diversity, equity, community, on creativity, culture, patrimonial heritage, on our own desire, on our own vision of what is going to be sustainability for the humanity at the end of the day. And all these questions are falling under the responsibility of a luxury brand. Just to look at some figures. My presentation was very optimistic and positive right from the beginning, but we shouldn't forget the subject of the environmental footprints, especially when we mix fashion and luxury together. There is 1.2 billion tons of greenhouse gas and global gas emissions that are linked to the fashion industry, 4 million tons of textile that are disposed of each year in Europe. You're going to see a movie, if you're staying with us tomorrow, which is Sur le Front, that talk about the end of life of our clothes that most of the time are not recycled, because we're not crafting goods to be recycled. Because if we want them to be recyclable, we shouldn't mix the materials that are within them, and we should craft them differently. There is 100 billion garments that are sold each year around the world. Well, this is amazing figures. I will give my presentation, so I'm not going to go across that, but we should have that in mind as well when we talk about fashion and luxury footprints. I click. Shall I look there? Okay, yes, better. And then if we want to dig into the impact, there are a lot of things that are linked to the luxury sectors to a certain extent. The water pollutions due to clothing dyeing, or the water pollutions that is linked to the craft of handbags. You're going to see that if you stay with us tonight. There will be the broadcast of Slay. This is a documentary about animal well-being and impact of leather sectors on the environment. There is as well the subject of the microplastic. So if you use natural fibers, that's better because it doesn't emit microplastic. If you use elastan or other substances that are derivative for the petroleum industry, the more you wash them, the more you put microplastic in the oceans. The more there is microplastic in the oceans, the more the fish are about just plastic, and the more the ecosystem of the oceans is getting in danger. And the ocean is what regulates the climate. So in fact, the subject of the oceans is intertwined with the subject of climate. And then we've got some of our goods that are ending up in countries that, like, so for example, Ghana. You're going to be able to see that if you look at the documentary Sur le Front, d'Hugo Clément. Some of our clothes are just finished in places that well, they're not responsible for that. We should manage our own waste. You've got really less waste when we talk about luxury goods, because you've got the chance to repair them, resell them. But this is still a subject that are quite important. And I'm not going to talk about mining and extractive industry, but it's mercury and cyanide pollutions that are subjects that is linked to our luxury. and that is quite important as well. And at the end of the day, you know that if we consume more than what we can produce, we are tapping into, we need more planets to sustain the consumption that we've got. And nowadays, we're not operating within the planet limits. This way. So there are multiplications of scandals that show that the expectation of new generations and millennials is getting more and more sensitive to sustainability and recyclability by design within the products. You can no longer do whatever you want. For example, if we look at the Yves Saint Laurent fashion show that was taking place this summer, that was in the middle of the desert in Marrakesh, there was a huge polemic about the fact that they bring swimming pool to just showcase the collection at a time where we were all suffering from heat. So that means that we've got a responsibility in terms of storytelling as a luxury brand, and we need to meet some of the concern of our current society. For example, there are other ethical subjects that are quite important, such as, can we still source diamonds that are coming from Russia at a time where we know that Alrona is owned by the state, and it could be considered as financing the Ukrainian war indirectly? Well, this is tricky questions, but as a luxury brand, those questions are your responsibility as a brand to manage the footprint in all its aspects. Moving on this way. The good thing is that the regulatory framework is changing really fast. There will be a lady that is very knowledgeable, which is coming from the Fédération de la Mode Circulaire, that will explain all the change in terms of regulations. New regulations on circularity, new regulations on climate, CSRD obligations to report on environmental and social governance indicators, new obligation for extended responsibility of the brands. That means that nowadays, luxury brands, they are responsible from the origins of the field to the usage of the products, which is really, I would say, a big change, but it's a duty that most of the brands have been working on anticipating this way. So good news as well is that more and more the luxury sectors have noticed that it was no longer the time to work in silo. It's the time to work in coalition for subjects that are bigger than the reach of a single brand. So, for example, the Fashion Pact has been on for more than 4 years. I think we're just about getting to the 5th year of the Fashion Pact. There is the Watch and Jewelry Initiative 2030. That is a bit of the same of the Fashion Pact that has been launched quite recently to target some of the topics. Fédération de la Mode Circulaire, Paris Good Fashions. Ask me a question at the end. I will be happy to respond to it. So the time of naivety is over. This is documentary that new generations are looking at. You are luxury brands. You need to watch them because these are going to be the questions that consumer will ask you tomorrow in your boutique. So it's really important to have an eye on what is said on new sectors. Moving on, the consumer are changing. I will not dig into that because we're going to jump into it with Deloitte and look at what are the expectations of consumers in terms of sustainability in the watchmaking sectors. But things are moving fast and it's a great opportunity. And as well, we can see that the resale of luxury good, which is the circularity of the product in itself, is booming and it's an increasing market. Fabienne and Stephanie have already sharing the numbers, so I move quite fast. As well, second-hand fashion is booming. So there is a desire for second-hand fashion that is really fast, and more young customer from the millennial generations are asking for that, and this is just the beginning. That's why Reluxury events, it's coming at the right time. It's going to be big, and we're just there together for quite a long time. However, let's just be not always single-minded. This is not because second-hand market is booming that we are consuming less clothes. Production in itself is booming. The usage of a clothes has been decreasing by 36% in less than 5 years. This is a very complex diagram. I invite you to go to the Ellen MacArthur Foundations and look at that, because we shall not confuse the booming of the vintage sectors with the reduction of the footprint, negative footprints in itself. The 5R. We talked about this morning, so I will not dig into it, but massive opportunity. So we've got the opportunity to redefine the way we think about the resources, recycling key, eco-design, new materials, innovations, circular sourcing. All the brands that are there today, they are acting on that. So we just put few names of speakers that are going to come, but there are a lot of initiative and a lot of reason to be optimistic, because as well, there are new recycled materials that are very interesting. And there is as well a way to make grow the core product that we need, such as cottons, wool, in a more efficient way with the regenerative approach. However, nothing is black or white. There is always pros and cons. For example, you look at the wool market, some people will say, well, wool is linked to animal non-ethical practices. But at the same time, you can say that wool is the natural fibers that free you from using plastic and to be dependent on the petrochemical industry. So Reluxury, it's all about lovable for a long time, respecting Earth's integrity, being qualitative and resistant. So it's emotional and physical sustainability as well as ethics. So eco-design in luxury can take many different faces. For example, the love bracelet is crossing, is being iconic of love. It's crossing years. I can talk about that for hours, so I go fast, and I explain after that. Recrafting has been here for quite a while, but it's booming. First initiative was about Petit H from Hermès, using the leather scrap. But you've got brands such as Eloise and Abelard that are doing full recycled jewelry, or you've got upcycle collections that are launched by Miu Miu. And nowadays, what is very interesting, it is now questions of developing service about repairing the luxury good. And you will see that you will have many companies that are within this salon that are providing solutions. Talk with them. This is amazing what can be done. And this is a duty for the luxury sectors to make repairability be a true promises. And then we've got new business model emerging. Listen to them as well. It's about renting, and there are more and more business that are starting to find the good way to make renting luxury good a success. Whether it's in art jewelry or whether it's for robe de soirée or traditional outfits. So we're promoting pre-love on vintage. I think the salon is about that. You can walk, you can talk to people, whether it's eBay, whether it's 58 Facets, Watchbox, it's booming. Luxury goods are not losing value, but they are taking value by aging. So it's an opportunity, and it's an opportunity to craft as well and to leverage a new creativity. Sobriety is not about being not creative. You can do awesome stuff that are sustainable for the planet. And you can do it while respecting the cultural heritage. More and more, you having a bit of a polemic and dilemma about what is called cultural appropriations on any luxury brand. Should be very cautious about that because it's something that is getting very sensitive. And you can as well do show and drive the ephemeral momentum of your brands with messages that are social rather than being disconnected from the reality that we are facing nowadays. So that was the introduction to say that the subject is to make luxury and fashion part of the solution rather than the problem, that there are many things that we can leverage. And we're going to see with Karine how we can do that and leverage the desire from the consumer for sustainability and vintage product within the watchmaking market. Sorry, that was fast. And maybe one thing that we should always have in mind is that without beauty, without the good in itself, in its craft, it's nothing. So luxury nowadays needs to be beautiful in its outside, but as well beautiful in its inside on its craft. So, Karine, I'm changing head.
Give me the clicker.
And before you do the presentation, I would like to talk a bit about you, who you are.
I don't like to talk about me.
You don't like, maybe move a little bit the micro, that was a test as well to make sure.
Perfect.
So you don't like to talk about yourself. So maybe share with us what brought you to have a deep interest in circularity in the watchmaking sectors and sustainability?
Yes, interesting questions because we do our watch survey, for example, for Deloitte. It's the 9th edition, but it's the 11th year that we do the study, and we are always looking at new topics that we can talk about. And I have to say that the first 7 or the first 6 editions, there was nothing around sustainability, circularity. It was more about production, Swiss-made, sourcing, collaboration. It was more about, I would even more say the industrial part. Then came the consumer part, because we started to ask the consumers what they think. Because you were saying it's a very traditional, it's a very closed industry. Historically, the watch industry was producing, and then the consumers had to buy what was been produced. Now it's more like, maybe should I listen to the consumers? So we built into the voice of the consumer into our study, and naturally, when you listen to the voice of the consumer, the topic of sustainability and circularity came up, and we're looking into that now more.
And it's interesting to look at that because the watch in itself, it's an icon that measures the time that passed. It stands for longevity. So it's interesting to see how the consumer value the crafts, well, the existence of sustainability in the craft, as the product in itself is a quite timeless product.
It is. I mean, a luxury watch is circular by essence because, as you mentioned, circular, at least it's timeless. You can pass it to the next generation. But you will see in our study that it's not necessarily for the passing to the next generation that the consumers are buying the watch.
So let's discover why the consumer is buying the watch. And I think that something that I would like you to drive you attention to, it's when we will go into the differences on the appetencies for sustainability, looking at different type of consumer, Chinese, French, German, Swiss. Maturity is not the same everywhere.
No, you can stay seated. I can look up. No problem. And so the slides are on the format of the event, so please excuse us if they're not 100% corporate or beautiful, but it's we try to do something quite crisp. So the Deloitte Watch Survey that you have in front of you, I mentioned it's the 9th edition. So it's just to explain about the study. So why are we doing this? And the question is always, why would Deloitte do a study? What is the reason for it? And the reason is that we at Deloitte, we're of course a professional services brand, want to understand the industry. And if we understand the industry and our clients, then we can propose better services. And as we are independent, we can write a piece of a report that is really completely independent, holistic, looking at the brands, the distribution, we're looking at the auction houses and the consumers, and put all this information together and contrast and compare. So we're not here, it's a bit like you, Céline, trying to understand understand the industry rather than saying you have to do this and you have to do that. We're not really doing predictions or doing grandfathering. So this is just 70 executives have been surveyed, and at the same time about 5,000 consumers in 11 countries to be able to contrast and compare. And this year we've specifically asked the same questions to the watch executives and to the consumers to see do they have the same understanding and do they behave the same. So 8 key findings, just for you to understand what have we been looking at. So one of the key findings is, we call it nothing secondary about the secondary market. So we know that pre-owned is becoming more and more important, and we spent quite some time analyzing it. We believe, and we've seen the growth rates of 8% considered for the secondary market. It's going faster and faster than the primary market, and we believe it will be, in 2030, more than half of the primary market. So really super, super important. Second point is online continues to shine. Interesting enough, a couple of years ago, the press said, oh my God, 70% will still be bought in store. Well, yes, 70% still bought in store is 30% online. The watch industry is not yet at 30% online. It's just half of that. So we believe that at 2030, it would be 30%. And we see as well that the young generation, they want to go out and they want to buy online. And especially, for example, the USA as well, much more connected, much more online than other countries. But in essence, and that's what the majority of the watch executives think as well, the watch, a luxury watch, will be still purchased in store. Here I am. Will still be purchased in store because it's an experience. I mean, you know, when you buy, often when you buy apparel, you try it on in store, and then you buy it online because you think you get a better deal. Watches, the consumer that comes into the store has already done a lot of research online. What do I like? What is the model? No? And they will often buy it in store because you want to feel this, the size of the watch, the weight on your arm, to get the experience. And it's a bit the other way around. So we still really believe that the store has a good future looking forward. I was speaking about the US and its adoption, the land of opportunity. The US has now 2022 and 2021 been the single largest markets for the watch industry. So it's 15% of the overall export. Europe is 30, but Europe is a lot of countries. So the US is being the single biggest market, and we always think, oh, China, oh, Chinese consumer coming to Europe. Well, it's the US now. ESG, or look at me. One of the questions we asked as well is, what are the criteria that make you choose a watch? I'll show you later. It's, of course, there's design, there is price value, there might be the brand, the easiness or the features that the watch has, or it can as well be the sustainability. It's not the key criteria for most of the people that are buying a watch. It is more important for younger generations, of course. I mean, we're not surprised. But when we asked the question, we said, well, you have two options. You have a watch that is more sustainable and a watch that has a great brand image, or invest a lot in brand image. Which one do you buy? So 30% say, I will buy a watch that is more sustainable. Only 20% said, I will buy a watch with a nice brand image. But 30% said, if I just like the watch, I don't care. So it's like we say the crush that happens. Number 5 is show me the money. We asked the question, why do you buy a watch? Usually, you buy a watch for yourself, or you buy it for a gift. Yeah, somebody it's an anniversary, somebody finished school, and you give the watch. What happens as well is that we see more and more, we talk about it, is this, the resale, secondary market picking up. A lot of people see an opportunity to make an investment. So this other said, do you buy for yourself, for a gift, to invest, or to resell? Well, we see 23% already for a gift, for a resale or investment. It's quite a lot already. And out of these, most of them, they buy to resell, to make money. Some lower percentage is buying to invest, to a diversified investment portfolio. And the third reason is only to buy to give to the next generation. So that's why I was saying it's still about the money. Well, I find immersed in the metaverse. Probably there's some conferences around this as well. 50% of the brands said, oh, I will launch a metaverse. I will either launch an NFT or do something in the metaverse. But only 40% of the consumers are interested, and 30% of the consumers, they don't understand what this digital asset is. So it still needs a lot of education before the metaverse is really picking up. Number 7 is watches are the girls' new friends. We were trying to analyze as well if, we speak a lot about genderless and being neutral. A lot of brands are now in their catalog. They, for example, they don't say it's a female watch and it's male watch. They just say that's the case sizes, and you select on the case sizes. We tried to figure out if our female respondents, for them it was important to have a female watch. I mean, when I got this 10 years ago, I said I want a watch with a apparent complication. I had to go to the male store, because obviously for female it was either smaller diamonds, no complications. So now, in the end, yes, female like genderless watches, but they still like smaller watches and watches that have a design that is made for them. So it's still the reality. And finally, when we asked, are you more interested in buying a watch than before? The older generation said, I'm less interested in before. They probably have a lot already. But the younger generation, the millennials and Generation Z, said, I'm more interested than before to buy a watch and to earn a watch. So we say thank you to the Apple Watch and other smartwatches, because the young generation is getting used again to wear a watch and wants to beef up to a nicer luxury watch, which I think is a nice finding. So that was very quick, but I think we're running out of time. Pre-owned market, just here again, I mean, we say if the 5,500 consumers, how likely is it that you're going to buy a pre-owned watch in the next year? You will see on the statistics, I mean, the younger they get, I mean, almost, that's the millennials, huh? They're born of 1980 and after. For Generation Z, 1 out of 2 would already buy a pre-owned watch. So there's no taboo anymore in buying a pre-owned watch, as it might have been before. When we ask the question, what are you considering the most important aspect of sustainability in a watch? And we compare here what the brands believe and what the consumers believe. So for the brands, it's all about ethical sourcing. Super important to have a traceability and to have ethical sourcing, 60%, but only 40% of the consumers, they really value it. What the consumers value more than the brands is the packaging, because they're much more sensitive to all the packaging that they throw away or they have to keep. Why can you not make it either recyclable or you can make less out of it, which the brands don't tackle fully yet, half. And then, of course, reporting on sustainability and compliance, very important as well from the consumers, because we always get questions, isn't it all greenwashing, all this reporting, is it really true? For us, we would like to know the real truth, and not sure that we get it. My earring, huh? It doesn't matter. I can take my earring out, or I can just not move. Thank you. And especially in France, reporting is very important. But in France, the companies had to be report on sustainability since a long time, and the consumer is expecting much more. Very important. When we speak about the materials, here we see as well what the consumers say, what is important. I mean, ethical gold, recycled packaging, up and recycled material, very important for them as well. More or less the same than for the brands. Trying to look at consumer preferences. We try to find out here who would pay more. It's more to understand, are you willing to buy a luxury watch? And how much would you spend? And we see that here, I mean, the countries that would spend the most, Hong Kong, Singapore, China, more than half would spend more than 1,000 Swiss francs on a watch. Even more than 40% would spend more than 5,000 Swiss francs on a watch, so quite high. But you see as well that the percentages, the shift between primary market and pre-owned market is not very big. So we thought that in some markets, maybe the pre-owned is not sociable or not accepted yet. It's not the case, because there is willingness to spend as well more than 1,000 francs on a pre-owned watch. This was the table about the deciding factors I was showing you. Just for you to understand, it's still price value, a lot, that is important for the consumer. But the brand image, as well as the design, is still very important for the consumers. Sustainability in most of the countries is not one of the top 3 deciding factors for buying a watch. And that's me. So I think that was a high-level interest, and we can still continue talking about the study and what is behind it. Thank you.
So, thank you so much, Karine. That was a a presentation that you can find all the information about, I think, on your website. So if you want more detail about this information, please take the report and contact Deloitte to dig in some of the aspects. I think maybe one thing that I wanted to say to conclude, as a bit fanatic of innovation, you've seen that packaging is quite important. So I invite you to stop by Nopla, that is a partner of ID Watch Genève, that is creating a new biodegradable packaging that is quite amazing. So if you are interested by that, just look at what they do. They work out of algae. Maybe you can stand up so that everyone can see you on that questions. There is amazing stuff that is done about recycle packaging and new innovation. We've got very few time for questions, so I don't know for you, Karine, but maybe you're going to be around all the day and even stay for the broadcast. So we will be happy to respond to questions at any time, and we thank you so much for taking the time to listen to a presentation where there is so many exciting things to see at the event. Thank you so much. Thank you, Karine.
Thank you for having me.
Thank you very much for these amazing presentations. It was full of key informations, and I think that we will all have to digest and review this very important insight from Deloitte, from Karine from Deloitte, and Céline from Ethiwork. We still have maybe 2-3 minutes for some questions. Do you have some questions for our guest? Everything was super clear? You know what to do?
Don't be shy. Just a question for the sake of having one question.
Amazing, one question. I like that. Thanks. Go ahead.
Part of the 5 hours is to recycle, rework, and resell. But that material might have been manufactured or conditioned prior to regulations that ensure a circular economy. So when you put that material recycled or reconditioned on the market, is there a vision on how to ensure the recycled material is compliant with the legislation that will come out and change, let's say?
Yeah, from what I understood, and it's going to be the topic of one of the discussions this afternoon, legislation is changing quite fast because so far there is no true indicators of recyclability, whether it's downstream or upcycle recyclability. However, the law in France has been changing for fashion goods, and there are new criteria for recyclability claims at the product level, and there are new obligations as well at the European level. So this morning there was a lady called Irene Martinetti, which is the head of the World Business Sustainable Development Council, and her job is to work on the key indicators so that we can both understand at the group level and at the product level how claim can be managed. And at the same time, on this topic, if you are passionate like we are, there is the Ellen MacArthur Foundation, that is the mother of recyclability, that issue reports that are about the luxury and the fashion sectors. And she gives her view on claim, new regulations, on evolving things. I don't know if I'm responding fully to the questions, because I didn't understood everything at the beginning, but I'm happy to investigate further. Maybe if you
I think it's a difficult challenge because, of course, once the material is there, when you recycle it, it has been produced the way it has been produced. No? So that's why it's important that for anything new, that the primary market is being heavily regulated, and I think then the secondary market will probably go as a second step. But first, it's important because the primary market is still bigger than the secondary market to regulate the primary market.
And at the same time, eco-design is the key, is that to be recyclable, we need to change the way we craft good and the way we mix materials. So there are new solutions that are emerging. There are new players such as Revalorem, many things that are coming to make things more circular, but they request to change the craft on the mindset of the the director of creations that work for the luxury brands.
Any are great. Please, please, please.
Regulation you're talking about mainly in Europe or France or the States or developed country, or what is is it true for undeveloped countries or product?
I would say that the European regulation has got a very strong stand on the market. Why? Because if you are a luxury group, most of the luxury brands are based in Europe, so they follow the European regulations, and by essence, what they will create will be the same whether you are in other country than the new one. One thing that is quite important to have in mind is that we have often seen China as being a country in which environmental, social regulation was not always respected. That's still true to a certain extent, but because they've got such a competitive mindset, they are moving very fast, adopting new practices, and sometimes being even better than European players on recyclability of materials and new innovation.
I would maybe add as well that the US has laws as well for or standards for non-financial reporting. They're not aligning completely to the European standards, but they have their own standards that they're working on.
And in France, there is the new CSRD directive that is going to impact many companies that was not yet reporting CSRD. Well, everything about CSR is about acronym, so I can give it CSRD. Which stands for, I can't remember.
Sustainable Reporting Directive.
Which will make a new obligation.
We have one last question for this session. Please go ahead.
So I know smartwatches are not really part of luxury yet, or I don't believe it is. But will you also take in consideration, because the number are rising for the sales also, that it could have an impact on ethics? And will you also consider to have an overview on smartwatches?
I would say that there are different regulations. So most of the smartwatch have got a DNA of coming from the electric industry, and the electric industry have been more constrained by regulations to implement circularity and to work on their supply chain. So if you take, for example, Apple, they are quite advanced on the subject of taking the gold out of their product so that it can go back into the craft of new product. So I would say that it's a different story. It's not the same materials, but regulation have been pushing them a bit more at the beginning. But that doesn't mean that the product in themselves doesn't have obsolescence programmée. I don't know how to say that in English. So it's well, they might not last for generation to generation.
Amazing. I think that maybe Karine, just the last
no,
word.
I just said that we see that the Swiss watch brands as well have more and more electronics in their watches because they have the hybrid smart watches. So it will become a topic as well for the watch industry, obviously.
So thank you very much from both of you for this amazing discussion and presentation. Please, a big applause for Karine and Céline.
Thank you. Thank you.
We will start in 3 minutes. Oh no, 10 minutes? Okay, 10 minutes. The next talk. So please have a coffee and come back to see us.